Hey everybody, this is Dr. Rehab Director here. I know it's been a while since I put a video up. I said I was going to hit home evaluations next as part of the video series. It's been a little bit cold up here, although that's just an excuse because it has warmed up here and there enough to do it. But regardless, here we go now. I live in Pittsburgh, PA, and yes, I am a Miami Dolphin fan. I was born and raised in Miami, so I made the move a few years back. Miami Dolphins are my number one team. You know, as a local now here, I do like the Steelers as well. That's my number two team, but number one. For all the haters, it won't matter because both teams this year didn't do much of anything anyway. So we'll hold the comments maybe next year for that. But getting back to home evaluations, today we'll start with just the outside of the house. There's several things that are involved when doing a home evaluation. And obviously there's reasons for, reasons not to, because of reimbursement issues. If you're doing a third-party payer, there's got to be a pretty big medical necessity for it. It's not something that we can do with all the residents or all the patients just because it's not reimbursable all the time. And most of the time it gets deferred to home health to do any of those kind of assessments. However, in inpatient rehab, or in a skilled nursing facility for a resident who's going back to the community, there's definitely opportunities for it. I think that working in the skilled nursing setting, one of the things that I tell people is that if what we're doing is not something that we can simulate to the point that we feel the person's safe, then we might go out there and do that. That's usually one of the things, because the reality is most of the things you do in the therapy gym, whether inpatient rehab or in a skilled nursing facility, are going to be simulatable to the real world, or the skill sets that you're working with the resident in the environment in this facility will carry over. It's very rare that it won't, and those are the few rare exceptions that you'll be able to recommend a home evaluation. When there's been something that's occurred in the resident that's pretty long term or permanent as far as medical change, and now you know that this person is never going to go back to being 100%, and where you expect them to be, regardless of compensatory strategies or the rehabilitation that they'll get, won't allow them to get to that 100% level. And you want to make sure that when they return, they can be as independently as possible. So you're going to be recommending some pretty significant modifications, or even to see if they can even return to that home in general. Those are instances where you might see yourself doing a home evaluation. As far as reimbursement, documentation, and all that stuff, we'll get to that in future videos. But the purpose of this set is just to kind of tell you about things that you need to do during the home eval. One of the things you're going to want is that you're gonna want paperwork or a form to fill out as you're doing the home evaluation that will allow you to do all these things. I have used a few different ones during my career. And you definitely don't want to try to do this off the top of your head and fill something out. You want something preset, some template that you're going to write as you go, because every home's going to be different. The scenarios are going to be different, and if you try to use it off the top of your head, you're going to fail. You're not going to be able to remember all the specific details. Just with the outside part, we talked about the stairs, the width, the depth, the gradients, the ramp, and you're going to want to write all these things down, because by the time you're done with the home evaluation fully, you're not going to remember all those details, and you want to have exact data that you can use to make the decisions or recommendations you will for the family. Now, things like entry carpets, throw carpets, things like that are the things to consider. They're potential obstacles or hazards for the clientele that you'll be working with. Making note of what kind of terrain they have, grass, gravel, so forth. Potential options as to, whether you would consider them maybe creating a ramp rather than going through these stairs, or going into the garage basement. Maybe your recommendation is that they're going to install a ramp and zigzag up to beat that gradient, and then from here either go to the front entrance or maybe potentially to rear or side door. Okay, but again, you're not going to make the recommendations yet. Those are potential options based on the overall picture of the home you evaluate. So for today, we're going to talk about the outside environment primarily, and when you're looking at the outside environment, there's a couple things you want to keep in mind. First of all is, what's a street like in the aspect of getting to the home. So you got to start from even before you get into the home, before you get into the driveway. What's it like? Because that may or may not determine some of the options you provide. Um, so initially on the outside of a home, you're going to be looking at, okay, what's the environment like in the street? Is the street flat? Is there gravel? Is it paved? Is it dirt? Um, what kind of drainage do you have during rain and other weather? Do you have a sidewalk? That also takes into account what options the person has as to getting that initial access to the property. Um, what kind of terrain they have? Is it grass? Is it gravel? Is there a gradient? As you can tell, there's a pretty big slope here. Do they have a driveway? Is the driveway gravel? Is the driveway slanted? Is there a grade to it? And from the driveway, is there a path to the front door? Keep in mind, you got to keep your mind open to alternative entrance points. Sometimes people, they think of the front door only, but sometimes the front door is not the best way for them to get in, depending on the limitations. You have to be open to entering through the garage if they have a basement entrance. Sometimes entering through the back or the side doors. Sometimes those tend to have better access points. For today's environment, for today's videos, we're gonna look at a ranch-style house with a basement. And we're going to be looking at the outside entry points and things that you would want to look at. We already talked about sidewalks, slants, gradients. So is there a driveway? Okay, driveways are nice because if they have some sort of wheelchair or some sort of ambulation issues, going through a smooth surface is easier than grass or anything else. You want to look and see what kind of entrance they might have going to the side or back of the house. As you can see here, we have the stairs to go to the front door. So just off the bat, you're looking at there is a ramp or incline, I should say. There's a garage there. That might be a potential alternate entrance. You have the stairs here. Anytime you're dealing with stairs or you're dealing with an incline of any sort, you want to look at how severe is it. So generally you want about 1 inch of elevation per foot of distance. So if the stairs or the incline on a ramp are higher than that, then technically they're not meeting ADA standards. Now, a home doesn't need to meet ADA standards, especially if it's already been established. But you want to use those ADA standards because those will help you make decisions on what you recommend or not recommend. If you're building something new, obviously you want to go through the ADA standards because that'll make the home more accessible for the resident now or in the long term, or maybe even for future residents. So getting to the ramp or the driveway here on this home, you'd want to look and see, okay, how much elevation do I have per foot of distance? Here you have the stairs. You want to look how many stairs you have. Do you have railing on both sides or just one side? What kind of landings are there? How many steps are there? How high does it go? We're going to follow this path here. Now, just off the bat, obviously, if I was looking at accessibility, this home would have some issues with the ramp as far as the gradient of the driveway. It can pose some challenges. If I was looking at somebody that has some pretty severe issues with stairs, my main idea would be to go to either through the garage and into the basement, depending what that looks like inside, or possibly the back or side entrance if there's a way to get there that doesn't require so much effort with stairs. But again, you have to kind of look what the inside looks like and see what the options are. The basement is going to have stairs of its own. You got to look and see how those look like. A side or rear entrance might not have a paved way to get back there. So you're looking at a whole big picture. So at the starting point, you're looking at the outside. So these are potential ideas, but we won't make any final decisions until we get the whole picture. Okay. So going back up to the stairs, we're looking at, okay, how many stairs is it? Generally, if you're measuring, for those of you that might not be familiar, you'd measure, the bottom to top. That gives you your height. So if you're looking at that, it's about 7 inches, a little bit less than that. And then you're going to look at your width. So you're going to go from one point to the other, get your distance there. And then this is also very important. How long are these steps? So you're going to measure from there to the front. Let me see if I can get a better picture of that. There you go. Because sometimes there's steps that are very narrow, and that could be a very big problem for some of the residents that you'll be working with. As you continue up the stairs, you see the landings. Landings, you want to see what they look like. Are they flat? Do they have any tilt to them, incline? What kind of material are they made? Are they slippery or not? Then you see that you treat these as the stairs. You measure the height, the width, and the depth. As you're approaching the front, you want to make sure that once you got through the stairs, you look at, okay, what's the front porch look like? Obviously, another elevation here. You measure that. You look at the surface. You know, you want to look at the same thing. What kind of surface is it? How wide is an entrance? So, as you can see, you have 2 columns here. You want to measure the distance between those columns to make sure that if they were coming in, depending on the body type of the resident, that it can fit, obviously, or if they're having some equipment at this point, which is probably unlikely based on the steps here. But you still want to measure it in case a ramp becomes a potential option in the future. You know, if you're going to build a ramp and they have the width that they need at the pillars here, then you don't have to worry about any of the changes. But if they didn't have the width necessary, then you might want to add that to the recommendations. So you have your spacing here. I would probably measure that area as well, just because it might serve as some sort of purpose for you later, maybe equipment storage, or if you're going to say that they're going to have more than one wheelchair, or maybe a possible storage for a power wheelchair, it's covered, you know, something like that. If you're looking at the steps to enter, okay, so you're going to measure that, the width. Obviously you have 2 doors here. You have a storm door, and then you have the regular door. So keep in mind, when you have those kind of things, you have to measure from the inside out. It doesn't make sense to measure from the outside to the other end, because you've already lost that space. Any space that interferes with what you'll need to get inside is something that you want to account for. Okay. You also want to look and see what kind of doors you have, how accessible are they for the person, turnstile versus press, and so forth. You know, the person being able to manage their keys. The other thing too is which way the doors open. The storm door opens to the outside, the inside door opens in. So if you have a door that pushes in, it's usually easier to maneuver. Usually when you have the door that pushes out, it's a little bit tougher on the person, depending, because they have to kind of keep it there, especially if it's a hydraulic or it has a pull system where it automatically closes. So those are some of the things that you want to keep in mind. Obviously, you want to keep in mind that where you live, you might have to consider the different seasons, whether it's winter, rainy season, and so forth, because the terrain will change. So I think that wraps up our assessment or our entry video for home evaluations. Look forward to seeing any comments, or keep following me for future videos.